we have the winners crowned of the FIDE Grand Swiss 2025. In the open section, we have Anish Giri, who is the champion. And in the women's section, our Vaishali managed to keep her crown again. And she repeated the feat that she achieved back in 2023 once again. Both of them also booked their spot to the candidates, apart from the fact that Anish took home US dollars 90,000 and Vaishali 40,000. The other two players who managed to get the candidate spot are Matthias Bluebaum in the open section, who got the second position, and Katrina Lagno in the women's section, who got the second place. In the open section, the third place went to Alireza Firuza, while in the women's section, it was Bibisara Asaubaeva. There was a lot of excitement, lot of intrigue, because one could never know who would come out on top. Let me take you through with some games and some stories. This is what happened. On the top board, Alireza and Bluebaum had a huge fight. Alireza wanted to win and started with the Dutch defense. And he gave it his all. But Matthias Bluebaum stood steady as a rock and managed to hold the game to a draw, which meant that he and Firuza both moved to 7.5 points. Now, on the second board, it was Anish Giri versus Hans Niemann. And Anish tried to play a very, very calm but solid opening. Let's have a look at this position where Anish, with the white pieces, had the bishop pair. And you can see how Anish approached this position. He went rook d6, then came back, and then brought his rook in. And when Hans went wrong with rook d8, Anish took, and pushed his pawn to b4. It's already getting really intense for Hans as he moved his knight to b3, rook c3, and here came the final error, rook d6, because after pawn takes pawn, now Anish executed a very nice tactic. He took the knight, bishop takes, and after bishop takes c5, it was all over. The endgame is lost, and Anish managed to win this game and move on to 8 points. This meant that Anish now had made it to the 8-point mark. Now, the only way in which he could be caught was by Vincent Keymer, because if Vincent managed to beat Arjun Erigaisi, he would actually make it to the candidates. He would also win the tournament, because the second tiebreak for Vincent was slightly better than that of Anish. Vincent actually had realistic chances of winning. If you look at this position, when Arjun went h5, Vincent responded back with g5, and Vincent is an exchange up, and after takes, he went rook c7. Maybe not the best move. Rook e8 was better, but rook c7, g4, and he got this in knight d3. Very nice move, rook to g7. And at this point, when they were nearing the 40th move, king f1, Vincent was clearly better. He had to find bishop to c8 and he would have been doing really well. But here he faltered. He took bishop takes d5, which was actually a decent move. But Vincent, you could see his expression. He wasn't happy. He took here rook takes d5. Maybe there was some better way to play in this position with bishop c8, but after this, Arjun managed to hold the game to a draw, which was unfortunate for Vincent, because yesterday he was winning against Matthias Bluebaum. Today he was better against Arjun, but eventually he scored only 7.5 points, half a point behind the leader, and he couldn't make it to the top 2 spots. This meant that Vincent couldn't make it to the candidates. In the women's section, we had Vaishali, who was playing against Tan Zhongyi. Now, Vaishali was on 7.5 points along with Katrina Lagno. And over here, Katrina made a very quick draw because she knew that half a point would guarantee her at least the first or second spot. So she finished on 8, and now Vaishali only needed a draw against Tan Zhongyi. This was not going to be easy because Tan Zhongyi was in quite an ambitious mood, but Vaishali found some very good moves. You can see here the game became quite sharp, but Vaishali was up to the task and actually a very, very good position here. After e6, she managed to hold in here, and one of the most important moves that Vaishali managed to find was after bishop f4 to find that rook takes b2 works. Bishop takes b2, bishop c7, c3, and now if you stop this pawn, now bishop a1, beautiful move, threatening c2, c1, and bishop f4 is met with bishop b2, and this is a draw. So that's the reason why here bishop c1 was played. But after this, we reached an opposite colored bishop position, and Vaishali managed to hold her own and actually got the draw. A fantastic performance by her to repeat her feat of 2023. She becomes the first ever player to actually retain her title in the FIDE Grand Swiss, and that is absolutely amazing. For the third place, it was a big fight between Bibisara and Anna Muzichuk. And in fact, in this position, Bibisara was completely winning. All that she had to do was play bishop b3 and take this pawn with the bishop. I mean, she was completely winning, but she faltered here with rook takes c2. And this position is now a draw because the black king is just in time to stop the white king, and the knight comes to f6. So this was a draw, but it didn't impact Bibisara's chances because she managed to finish third and take home the bronze medal. Yeah, there were a few players who I think need a special mention. Abhimanyu Mishra in the open section, this 16-year-old boy performed at an incredible rating performance of 2828, gaining 32 ELO points. Another American who did exceedingly well was Andy Woodward, who performed at an ELO of 2784, gaining 33 ELO points. And also a special shout out to both Divya Deshmukh and Alexandra Goryachkina for scoring 5 points out of 11, playing in the open section and really doing very, very well. The FIDE Grand Swiss comes to an end, and I must say that it was a tournament that really gave an opportunity to so many players in both the open and women's section. Many could have made it to the candidates, but in the end, Anish Giri and Matthias Bluebaum make it in the open section, and Vaishali and Katrina Lagno in the women's section. I hope you enjoyed all the recaps. For now, this is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.